this is working. Hey, good morning. Today I am going to talk about my experiences with what I believe to be possibly extraterrestrials, as well as other forms of human contact that may overlap with that. I'm not going to get really deep into things that I feel might be military, because it's just not my it's just not my thing to. I'm here more to listen and share ideas, and then to particularly call out specific things. But I will not lie about anything, and I will not hide anything that I think is important. I just not going to try to do things in an inflammatory way. I get pretty inflamed already by the state of science and military. So I really just want to try to find the pieces of everything in the universe that make sense, the things that work together, the ideas that every part of consciousness has brought to the table, and how we can, and then the places where every part of consciousness became tangled or confused, and try to figure out as best we can how to move forward and grow as a universal consciousness in a more directed way. Going back, healing, untangling, quantum unentangling, shadow work, ancestral healing, all those various words that mean similar things, which is repairing the relationships and figuring out which ones we want to keep, which ones we don't, and taking a look at ourselves as well as helping other parts of consciousness speak for themselves, and helping them decide for themselves which parts that they want to keep and which parts they don't. And the arguing and fighting for that is, as far as my work here goes, I'm going to argue with you guys in the real world all the time. I call it the real world, but like, I'm going to argue with humans for ideas, but I am not going to create discord with ancestors, entities, gods, religions, scientific ideas, science as a consciousness, which I believe, physics, chemistry, biology, I believe those are all just elder consciousness. This is versions of us, which many people say in many different ways also. So, also, before we get started, a couple quick things. I am going to do a video in the future here talking about, so this is about sort of extraterrestrial contact. I had seen an article a while back, or not an article, I guess it's from a Buddhist book teaching. Unfortunately for me, I have been led in a way that keeps me away from learning a lot of this stuff. So it keeps me very neutral. I have not studied, besides, growing up Catholic and having my arguments with that. I haven't really studied the religions, just very little bits. And I saw something called the Alien Buddha, and it resonated. And I've had many experiences specifically with that. And like this morning, I learned the name Lakshmi, which I have heard before, but I didn't really know anything about her, and I still didn't. I just knew, I read that she was the Tulsi Basil was the earthly incarnate of her avatar. And so I was drinking some, and as I was stretching, I could feel her channeling with me, and but I didn't know anything about her, and she said, well, right before you go on, you can look up, but let's like sort of get ready. So I was getting ready, and while I was I just straightened my hair a little bit. I know the ancient alien guys have wild hair, so I can too. As I was getting ready, there's like a bright red lipstick, and I kept being prompted to put it on, and I was like, no, I don't, and I'm not ready for that kind of heat. Like, I'm not ready. And then she kept saying, well, make sure you tell them that when you put that red lipstick on, it's over for those hoes. So, sorry guys, but not today. Today it's not over for anybody. And lastly, I also, just before we get into the alien stuff, I have not seen a single episode of Ancient Aliens. I just never was drawn, like I said, I've been drawn to study so many things. I've been drawn all over the world. I'm drawn to people on the streets. And for these reasons that I'm finding out now, I would be like, wow, that looks cool, and then I would start to watch it, and my brain would be like, blah, blah, blah. So I think that I was sort of being kept in the dark about all of that stuff, so I could have a clean slate when I had communication, and I did, because I found everything out after I was communicated with. So, and that actually went along with my request to maintain my left brain stability. So I called it the sanity, which is being able to relate to I guess, the social norms of the way that we view the world. And I see, insanity, we tend to see people who see the world or experiencing, having sensory experiences that are vastly different from uh, the bell curve of the normal human experience, what we consider normal at the time. Of course, it's constantly changing. So what I requested for this lifetime, because I don't know if Sarah, or I don't know how any of this works, but I have so many memories of lifetimes of being incarcerated in mental hospitals, of being tortured, of being abused in ways because of my mental health. And sometimes as male sort of philosophers, and oftentimes as female oracles, seers, witches, things like that. I have a lot of memories of that. So this whole lifetime, since I've been a very young child, my family can attest to this, that I have been so serious with them about absolutely, no matter what happens, not putting me in a mental hospital. And it was like I spent so many years sort of getting a buffer, and still it still was a rocky road. But so my request with any entities and anything that I spoke with was to make everything make sense within the realm of the left brain, and then just slowly open up this section of it. And so as I would hear something or be channeling, then within a few days, a week, sometimes it would take 5 or 6 months, but I would have done so many things that within a week I would see at least one specific thing that showed me that what I was hearing was real. Meaning, I could go out into the physical realm and say, I heard about this, and 3 days later it would be on the news. Or I could call a friend and say, are you talking about this right now? And they would say, yeah, why? And I'm like, because I can hear you. And then that would help me understand that I wasn't crazy. So I could talk to you like this and not talk, crying and angry, which happens a lot with people who do this kind of work, because we can hear you as we're starting to tell you what we're thinking. We can hear you're like, and that starts to make us feel really shitty, and then we get more desperate to explain ourselves better. And since you're not understanding us anyway, the desperation to explain ourselves starts to unravel, and you have what people see as various mental breakdowns, emotional outbursts, other things that people identify with being crazy, which that word is hopefully on its way out. But I am still using it because I'm using it to point out how it's used. I don't call people crazy, and I try not to call myself that, although I do sometimes jokingly still, and that's just left over from a lifetime of being so different that everyone tells you you're just a weirdo and that you don't make any sense, except for then when people finally figured out, they're like, wow, that was really great, actually. So, for 5 years you don't make any sense, and then 5 years later they figure something out and they go, oh, remember when you said that? Yeah, I do remember that. Would have been cool if you were a little nicer when I said it. But okay, anyway, moving on. So let's see. When I first started having these experiences, the entity that came to me was identified himself as the monotheistic God. Now, I have some incredible stuff to talk about with that, but I will not get into it because the monotheistic religions are the most violent on the planet. And if I tell you what happened with that the interchanges with me and that entity, that would be the most violence and hatred and anger that I would get put at me. All of this other stuff, right? These they have, you know, people that don't believe it or people that are angry. But if I told you what has actually happened with me and the monotheistic God and how it has gone out, that one is the scariest one to me. So I'm going to wait on it, but I'm going to just tell you that that's how because that was who I was the most familiar with, having been introduced to spirituality through Christianity. That was the first entity that I spoke with, and that's how I identified, you know, that presence. So it sort of went through there, and I asked him to give me, you know, very specific things. And what happened was, after I went through a series of just with him and I, was stretched out. At first, it was just a little bit, and then a few days later, a little bit, and then a week later. And then I got introduced to other entities through him, with requests to help piece back together the whole and help with diplomacy or just listening or yeah, I don't know what to say. God. So, okay, we just need to move on from the monotheism because it's just like, ugh. People do not fuck around there. And I cannot do any more bullshit with that area right now until there is more people having these sort of relationship exchanges with God. So anyway, fast forward a few months. So I had already been having experiences in channeling when I had the first contact with an extraterrestrial, and they were just sort of showing. It was more like remote viewing and telling me different things, but I could feel them. They would touch my arm, and I could actually feel sort of the shape of them. And there were, I find out now that this is common, but there was, you know, the sort of 15-foot tall feeling being, and then there were the ones that were a little shorter. I have since had one that actually, so I can't remember if it's American Dad or something. See, didn't watch it, but there was an alien that lived in an attic, and he had like a flat head and like a belly, and I've been in the presence of one that had that physical parameters. So anyway, after I first had my first couple physical contacts, I, you know, was shown on Amazon a movie called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and I had never watched anything like this before. I've seen, you know, E.T. and movies like that, and I've watched some videos of UFOs, but I never have seen UFOs. I've never seen them, and I believe in them. I just wasn't drawn into that part of it. So I started to watch it, and while I was watching it, I realized that this was happening because they talked about telepathic communication. And sorry, I know I'm a little bit slow this morning because this material is just really tough, and I've been having a really hard time, as you can probably tell. Well, I've been feeling great. I haven't been having a hard time. I've been having a hard time with human relationships, and I have had several people who just completely like turn and be very terrible again. And that is because you say something that triggers, they have this set box, and these people will drag you in. Oh, thank you, you're doing this, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're not doing it. All of a sudden you're making it up. All of a sudden you're crazy. And it's like, how, like, just people, right? You guys are so selfish. Okay, like, I wonder if you even notice that there's anything else on this fucking planet besides yourselves. Like, I know that we get in our bubble, right? But everything is alive. I mean, you don't even notice other people. I mean, when I'm driving, I'm like, we are in these giant vehicles, and you guys are trying to kill each other so no one can get in front of you. Like, do you understand that the suffering that you will cause? I'm walking down the alleyway. People are just trying to cut some stupid traffic that's 5 minutes, and they like constantly almost run me and my dog over. Like, I don't know what the fuck you guys are doing, because you're you know, are you just racing towards the apocalypse? Because you're free to go. Just stop taking the rest of us with you. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe we're not free to go because we feel like we haven't given ourselves that, and we've sort of kept each other in prisons. But calm the fuck down, seriously, and notice everyone. And you know what? Just don't talk to me. If if you have some selfish motive, or you just, please don't even talk to me. Oh yeah, and I realized last night when I was reading that even though the stuff that I've done with Buddhism has been very high and out, and a lot of the sort of where broadcasting, like someone will be giving a lecture or a talk or answering questions, and I will just be broadcasting because I have a very high whatever. Or sometimes I'll be being asked questions and channeling them through, or using the part of my brain that is unique. But I realize that I identify more with the big raft version. So, I'm in it for like everything. The work I am doing when I speak to all of these entities, or when I communicate with animals, is part public defender, meaning I hear them in a safe area, and then I help go through and sort of help them explain themselves and understand why the mistakes they made, and they always make sense to me. I can walk back from the inception of the universe and through physics and all these things, and we can always find how a mistake turned into something we consider evil. And so we can always, always, always find the root, and the root is in our shared universal consciousness. So sometimes a mistake sends someone wheeling over this way, and then they're never able to recover from that. And we were so young, we didn't have really things in place to help heal or undo those. And plus, we also kind of thought they might have done it on purpose, which eventually we started to do things on purpose. But so I do a lot of that kind of work, and I also do like diplomacy, like having different ideas meet and sort of helping them find common ground, as well as just, like I said, hearing all of the ideas that have ever been brought to life and finding a way to sift through them and say, okay, so this part is great, this part is great, but this is where we went off. But if you take all of this, we actually have a very nice cohesive whole, which includes everybody. And the parts that we will lose, we won't be mad about. We're going to choose to lose them. These are the violent parts, and we're not going to have to be connected. So some people say, well, I don't want to be connected, I want to hear all these. So we became other on purpose, so we didn't have to live in a single, hive mind, what some people feel like a schizophrenic consciousness. You don't have to. You can have a personal experience. But if you never connect with anything else, then your personal experience will start to trample and snowball. So what we need to get a better grip on as humans is, one, figuring out why it is when we sleep we don't connect properly, because that should be the easiest way. We're awake, we're present, we're doing what we have ideas from what we want to do, what we came in this life to do, and we're seeing other people which are giving us ideas. We're seeing other animals, and these are giving us out. We should get ideas from the outside and answers from the inside. And when we go to sleep, we should be able to go in and learn any new ideas that anyone's had. This concept of patenting ideas, and just, this is so weird, right? This is just like a weird. This is not how we're supposed. You're not supposed to withhold. You're not supposed to have an idea and like hold it in your head so no one can hear it, and you can wield some sort of power. This is an artifact from the mistakes that we've made thus far, and it is on its way out. Okay, so anyway, the point is we're supposed to find these ways to connect, and there are these extraterrestrials. Some of them are very connected, and some of them are very disconnected. And okay, sorry, I really just need to dive into it. All right, so after I watched that, a few days later, I was channeling, and I was speaking out, and I had a very specific cadence in my voice and a very specific cadence to the voice. So each of these different entities have a very different feel. Some of them have a specific voice. Some of them, I think, are so removed from human brains that I don't get them as any, I get them as my own voice in my head, but they feel very differently, and there's like colors associated, or even sort of like tastes, like or sensations of, you know, metallic, or some of them are very nice, like, you know, that glowing, that I like, ah, you know, and then some of them are they don't feel good to me. That's because it's not my state of being, and it feels very uncomfortable. So after I had that, I had this very specific cadence, and you know, a day or two later, I saw the movie about Bashar, which is called First Contacts. First Contacts, and it's and I had heard him one time a long time ago from this guy who showed me him, and I thought his voice was so obnoxious, and I think it was partially, like I said, I was turned off by it, so I wouldn't know about him or hear about him, and I could be introduced in this way, which would help my brain. So I spoke with these entities, and then when I watched the video, I said, well, okay, that's the same entities, and that really cemented to me that I was doing what I was doing. Now, a couple of them that I have spoken to, one, some of them were very like blue. So sometimes I remote view. I don't really know what astral travel is, the difference between remote view and astral travel. I haven't really looked it up, so maybe that's synonymous. But I would be sort of feel like I was taken. I would be, you know, have my eyes closed, and I would feel like I was taken, and I could see like this world. One of them was this really beautiful blue world, and it was this balance of communication, and that one was really nice. And then another group that I've had a few interactions with was just just a yellow. It was sort of like a burnt umber, but brighter. Somewhere is this very specific yellow color, and those ones feel like they're very, very, very distant. And but the ones that were, I think, the most dramatic for me, well, obviously it was quite dramatic to see a guy talking in the same cadence as these people, as these entities. The most dramatic one that was, I guess you would say, sort of scary or sad, was this group that came, and they felt really, really, really terrible. I mean, I could not find a single drop of joy. It wasn't even like depression. It was like, I don't, it's very hard to describe it. But what they were telling me was, and this was last year, probably about September or October, somewhere in there, probably September. They were telling me that the earth had been what was considered like a beautiful redwood. This is how they described it to me. It produced like these blossoms of this joy, and it was really beloved in the universe, because it's almost like you go to a certain place, and this is the only place where you can grow this flower, and you know, it produces this oil. And so they would come and, you know, harvest it, and but not in the way where it was unsustainable. I mean, that's not what they admitted to. But what happened was we became very rotten in the roots, and the trunk became very rotten. And this is like a very, very, it's like going to the redwood forest, and there's this tree that's like, you know, 6,000 years old or whatever, but it's really starting to look like it's gonna, you know, fall over. But not on top of that, we were seeping our rot. So it's not just like, oh, it's old, we should get rid of it. It was like whatever was going on with us, it was seeping it out. So like it was just going out into the universe. So they came to me because they were saying that the earth, they were wanting to destroy the earth. And they were trying to ask me if I could, you know, visually take them through all of the parts of the earth that were rotten, not only just human consciousness, but the things on the earth now that have been, but mostly human consciousness has caused this. And basically asking me if I could show them, one, examples of any joy that were on the planet, which was very hard to do when they were holding, you know, when I was in that state, because I was with them. I was meeting them to communicate, and it was very hard for me to find joy. I put on the 51st Dates movie, and my sister was there, and it was a pretty traumatic experience because she didn't want to hear any of it. And they were saying things like, you guys aren't very nice, you aren't very kind, you aren't very loving. And, she was like, you're just saying a bunch of mean things to me. And I was like, I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. And I'm just telling you, I mean, I feel that way, but I don't. I always forget. So Sarah, it's hard to tell because I'm a ding dong, and I always think you guys are so great, and then you always prove me wrong by being jerks. So it's almost as if I'm here trying to I'm like a puppy dog who's just trying to be like, oh, everything's so great, everyone's so fun, let's go on an adventure. And you guys just keep being like really shitty. And so someone comes by and is like, why are you being so shitty to this sweet puppy dog kind of thing, is what it feels like. So anyway, they explained to me this tree and everything. So fast forward to, well, we're going to rewind actually. Fast forward to December of last year, the movie Jungle Cruise came out. And when it opened, I recognized the opening scene. There was an image, and I was like, I actually drew that image. And I went out into my living room, and there's a picture which I had painted 15 years ago, 16, 17 years ago. I'll grab it. So I do not paint. You can see that. I have painted maybe like 8 or 9 things in my life, and I can tell now that they're all channeled because I would just all of a sudden sit down and paint. And that one, I don't remember why I painted it, but I did, and I've had it. And when I saw the movie, instantly I was like, oh my God, that is the picture. There's a single petal, and that single petal is just out of reach. And the rest of it, the background looks like a swamp, which I don't know why I even did that. It was the first time I ever tried to paint anything like that, and it came out really cool. And, a completely decrepit, dead tree. So anyway, turns out that's exactly what the movie The Jungle Cruise is about, is the tree of life, and they go, and it's completely dead, and there's a single petal left. So as I was watching it, they channeled again, and they were like, this is what we were talking about. So I believe that we have healed that. Whatever work we did last year in that timeline, we have healed a large portion of the root system. I'm not sure I don't know what, but I've heard other people say at this point that we've already done it. Just recently, I saw someone else say a similar thing, and I was like, okay, because I thought we had figured it out. But at that time, when I painted this, we had not, and so we lost that petal, and we were destroyed. So if you believe in these multiple timelines, which I do, and I don't understand them, it seems like back when I was painting this, I was being shown a future where we hadn't figured it out yet. And now I see a future where we have figured it out. Anyway, I think that's probably good for right now, just because I don't... Oh, so actually, let me just tell you about the physical contact. So I do have lots and lots and lots of physical contact with them. I can feel them sometimes touching me, moving me. And what I do feel a lot of, and this is at various times, sometimes it's during the day, sometimes it's in the evening, I can feel what feels like an MRI scan, and sometimes it's sort of like on the body, although now not as much. It was last year, it was a lot of that. Also, I feel what feels like almost like a laser pointer, but like a little laser pointer going along the crevices of my brain tissue, and it feels like it is sort of sending circulation and stuff to it, and I can feel like parts of it almost like it's getting moved through, and then I'll get things will come down, but within my brain I can feel like the parts of the brain that haven't been getting circulation, getting the circulation. And also I used to get migraines and all these things, and I don't really get them anymore, but sometimes when it was doing it, I could feel the parts where I would get migraine, and they would work. It would almost be like it would be like working. Now, as I've been learning more about Reiki, which I just was channeling with some Reiki practitioners, and some that were doing a type of Reiki that was from South America. One night I was working on a friend, and I can't do it. Sarah cannot do it, but if I can get into space, I can channel. I was not touching her, and her body was going like this. And I was being told by this one from South America that it was like a serpentine entity, and what it was doing was helping her pull her skin. She had a very, from the trauma, had like a very tight casing, and I was loosening it, but I wasn't like removing it. So anyway, as I've been learning about Reiki, right, it's hard for me at this point to always know if there is if I think of it as another entity working on it, or if I'm just channeling Reiki energy, or if there's even a difference. Like, this may just be a similar word that when you look into it, so this is the universal energy, right? So the universal energy would contain all energetic entities. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there in case, people understand it or know it, and they're like, oh, nothing's touching her. She's just doing Reiki. It's possible that's what I'm doing. But also, one other thing that will happen a lot is that I'll have my legs, and I can feel like a very tiny little MRI going like, and it's almost like sort of really gently like moving my leg like this, and then it's like going up and down. It's really quite nice, but of course it took me a while to relax into it, which is what I think a lot of people have a lot of issues with. When you're feeling migraines, you're feeling stuff, I think there's a lot of energy that we're not comfortable with, which we shouldn't be, because we're very traumatized by the universe, and we're very traumatized by each other. And so we don't open up to it, and it feels painful, or it feels like muscle cramping, or it feels like migraines, when if we learned to relax into it, meditate into it, it would actually feel very nice, and it is doing some sort of healing. And also, I believe that part of the work that I do, I don't know if it's just for my own personal. So the other thing is, I'm not even sure if so there's like the idea of like a single electron universe. If I am just one electron in my body is the consciousness for Sarah, and I'm, the entire universe is a projection of what's inside of my body. And because we have similar things, we have overlap. And as you start to heal, or as you start to change, the universe manifests differently around you. Now, when I've done channeling, sometimes I feel like I'm a magic bus inside my body. It's very obvious. And other times I feel like I'm outside of it. So I'm just putting all that out there to sort of prep, because I'm going to talk about a lot of really weird stuff, and I really need to go slow and sort of prep it. Anyway, I will talk to you guys soon.